Good evening, and thank you, Mikal and Michael, for providing this opportunity for NAFO Department of Agriculture to provide an update as well as an explanation of what the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund program. Before we begin, I would like to just introduce myself. Yat A Nikide Nindole. She Jesse Jim Yenshia. Donnet and Schlinigi A Lashin Nashlin Tina Bitly Bashishin Chijidashi Chedo Todichini Nationale. And I am the Department Director for Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture. And I would just like to explain what are your benefits. Recently, I know AIF has been on headlines, on the radios, and I'm here to clear up some of the talk about what really is, not really what is going on, but just to explain the program to our producers to let you know what are your benefits and how this program has developed from 2016 to now. Okay. For some reason, I'm really nervous. Okay, so let's start with what is the AIF program. AIF is the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, and it was established in 2016 to develop agriculture infrastructure across the Navajo Nation, NPL, Navajo Partition Lands, and former Bennett Freeze area. And then the projects that are approved for infrastructure development has to deal with range management, grazing, livestock management, our tribal ranches, improving them, fencing, farming and irrigation, as well as agriculture, water development, reservoirs, dams, and everything to do with agriculture, water development, as well as watershed planning, drought contingency and mitigation efforts, and then also branding of livestock, which is our brand management office. So that's what the backbone of what AIF is here for. These AIF dollars do come from indemnity payments that are received from Navajo Nation's participation in the USDA risk management agency's pasture, rangeland, and forage insurance program. So that's how we receive the funds to implement these programs. The legislation that was developed that authorized DNR, which is the Division of Natural Resources and Department of Agriculture, to enroll in this program is CO 716. And those can be found from the legislative branch. We do have some copies here at Department of Ag, and if you guys would like a copy, you could certainly email me. I will have my email address at the end of this presentation. Okay, so before we dive further into what AIF is, let's talk about this PRF insurance, the pasture, rangeland, and forage. As I mentioned earlier, it is provided by the Risk Management Agency, and it is a program, an insurance-based program that covers perennial pasture, rangeland, or forage land used to feed your livestock. So it provides, it's a risk management tool for our ranchers to cover the precipitation needed for their rangelands for their operation. If we don't have rain, the ranges don't grow, we don't have enough feed to feed our livestock, and that's going to impact the cattle market and the sheep market. And so just like with our car insurance, this is just insuring our rangeland so that our producers don't feel a huge effect of the drought that we have went through in 2018 and 2020. Those were some tough years, and that's where this insurance dollars will come in during drought, not after. With FSA, there is the program that correct me on this, Kelly or Michael. It is the NAPS insurance that happens after, and it's a certain category has to reach with PRF. It happens during. And then also, just to let you know that if your area is not getting rain, but if you look on the on the drought monitor, it'll tell you you're not in drought. It is based off grids, and I'll save the in-depth presentation of how the PRF insurance works for another time, and maybe we could set that up with NSA to have our current insurance agency, which is Native Land Insurance, to provide that presentation for all of our producers on this evening. So the big question, how can I apply to participate in PRF program? You don't need to apply. The Navajo Nation has already set up one policy for all Navajo ranchers for trust lands that fall within Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. It does go off land status. So for Big Navajo, it is categorized as trust. For our allottees and our lessees that are located in Eastern, they are able to participate utilizing their own policy. So all of our ranchers that are on Arizona, on trust land, you guys are already signed up, and I'll explain in the upcoming slides of how do you receive those benefits. For those producers that want to sign up individually on trust land, unfortunately, because of the land ownership, Navajo Nation, like I said, is already signed up on your behalf. If you are looking to sign up, independently, we can certainly have that conversation, but it all comes back to land ownership, and that's a whole nother discussion on when are you guys going to get your grazing permits. As I said, Eastern allottees as well as lessees who are located on tribal ranches, they are participating on their own if they choose to be. Okay, so talking about our insurance agency. So within the standing legislation, CO 5716 allows the Division of Natural Resources and Department of Agriculture to have the authority to procure an insurance agency to represent the Navajo Nation in receiving PRF insurance. And we have to adhere to all Navajo Nation laws, which is your Navajo Business Opportunity Act and Navajo Procurement Act. And then also we have the authority to manage, administer, and implement all AIF projects on the Navajo Nation accordingly. So since 2017, the nation has been participating. They had to sign up in 16. 17 is when we started to see the benefits here on Navajo Nation. And there's 3 legislations that have approved the past 8 years of projects, and that is listed at the bottom of the screen, which is your RDCD 118, which approved year 1 AIF projects, and year 2, the same legislation. And then there's a separate legislation that was passed in 2022, which is the RDCD 40-22 that approved year 3 AIF projects. Okay, so in order to receive indemnity payments, we have to pay a premium. And this is paid utilizing the CHSN funds. The CHSN funds, just a quick fact, food for thought, I guess, was developed from the lawsuit from the Navajo Nation to the United States government. That lawsuit was a result of BIA not managing Navajo Nation trust assets. So that was developed to fund community development and infrastructure projects. So see the standing legislation CO 5716 has reserved 19.8 million to utilize for these premium payments. When we receive the indemnity payments, we pay back the CHISN, and so that's how the CHISN fund is utilized. Now going to our premium. What is Navajo Nation's premium? Well, within the PRF insurance, the USDA provides this subsidy that they're going to pay anywhere from 51% to 59%, depending on which coverage selection that the Navajo Nation chooses. So for the past 8 years, the Navajo Nation has been covering 90% of utilizing this PRF insurance. So the higher the coverage, the lower the subsidy payment to the insurance carriers. So at 90%, USDA is going to cover 51%, and it bottoms out at 70%. So if we chose 70%, USDA would cover 59% of our premium. And that's how it fluctuates. So that's where we're at current, for the past 8 years. And, to be safe, we would cover ourselves at 85% to where we're not paying too much. Of course, if we have a higher coverage, the premium is going to be higher and vice versa. I just wanted to explain that so we're all on the same page. And then here, there's 3 legislations tied to CO 5716. There you can read that CMY 5418 has amended CO 5716 to extend our coverage for additional 5 years from 2018 to 23. Now, most recently, CAP 1624 has amended CMY 5418 to extend the nation's PRF coverage from 24 to 28. So, and then also it has designated only 10.8 million to come from CHISN fund guarantee and 9 million to come from AIF's uncommitted net revenues. So what does it look like? What does our performance look like for the entire 8 years that we have been participating in this program? So this table here, I'll walk you through it, is what I have gathered from the legislation, the AIF project approvals legislation from the inception to now. So let's start with year 1 in 2017. We paid 44.4 million to make 39.1 million. How did we pay the 44.4 million? The USDA subsidy paid 51% of this 44 million, which turned out to be 22.6 million. What did we pay on our side from the Navajo Nation? Well, we paid 21.8 million to participate in 2017. The gross PRF indemnity payments that we have received, the benefits was 39.1. And so we received that, we covered our expenses, and what was available for the AIF benefits was 17.3 in year 1. And that's how the table reads from 2017 through 2024. As you can see at the bottom, the highlighted to be determined, we have not received all of 2024's indemnity payments, the benefits yet. We should be receiving it, I believe, by March, and we'll total out how our benefits by then. But for now, what the nation has benefited from this program after we paid our bill, our premiums, has been 110.6 million. So before we move forward, I was talking about the CHSN reserve payments we had utilized to buy into this insurance program, and it has been paid. So if we look at the indemnity benefits that we had received from the table before for each year, we'll start off with 2017. We received 39.87. So we paid our 21.8 million to make 17.3 available. Let's break down this 21.8. How much came from the PRF indemnity benefits payment? And that's why we have an insurance agent to help set it up to where the premium, the program, insurance program pays for itself. So this was how it has been set up with our previous insurance agent, CKP. So from this 21.8 million, the nation has paid 9.6, and it has been repaid in each year. And you could see the performance from 2007 to 24. 2019 was a bad year for the program, but a good year for us ranchers because we had a lot of rain, which was a blessing. And you can see that 2020 was a bad year. We did receive high indemnity benefits and so forth. And so once we do our checks and balances, this is how we ended up with 110.6 million. Okay, so what does that mean for your AIF benefits? As I mentioned earlier, the legislations that approve each year's project plans, this is how it's laid out. I've included the legislations that approve year 1, year 2, year 3, and soon to be year 4 once we get the final numbers. In order for these projects to be approved, there has to have been a fund management plan that is in place before the funds are utilized. And there's the legislation underneath the title Reserve Set Aside, which is the RDC AU 7418. And within that fund management plan, it outlines that for 7 years, 2.8 million of the indemnity benefits should be put aside to where we have our own reserve rather than rely on CHSN funds. And so happy to report since 2023, we have met that goal. And so what does this mean for our benefits? Year 1, after our checks and balances, we have 17.3 million that was made available. We put aside our reserve, and which means that there was 14.5 million available for these projects within each year. You can see year 1 and year 2, they set aside the projects. It kind of gets a little bit sticky when you get to year 3 for the obvious reasons of 2019, we lost money, but that's okay. 2020 through 23, we have made money to offset. And so if we go down here to what we received of 110.6 million, we were able to put aside our 19.8 million for our premium, and which meant 90.7 million was made available for these annual, for these AIF projects. So the next question I know you guys may have is, well, what do these projects look like? Well, before we get to the table of what projects have been approved, let's talk about your AIF benefits. It comes in 2 forms. Number 1 is within AIF projects that are administered by the Division of Natural Resource Departments, which is Department of Ag, Department of Water Resources, Fish and Wildlife, Forestry Department, and the Historic Preservation Department. They have their individual projects that provide direct services to the ranchers and farmers. And so these practices are meant to improve ranching practices, which include supplemental feed programs. I'm sure you guys have seen flyers that have went out about our department having feed supplement tubs to assist our ranchers who are grazing their livestock out in their pasture. We are avoiding giving supplement feed, free supplement feed, due to the fact that it becomes a big ordeal. Those that have worked at the chapter know back in 22 when there was that livestock feed distribution, we still have chapters that are still trying to distribute feed. And what did that mean for the individual rancher? Well, that meant because it was free, we only, and I say we because I'm a rancher myself, received 5 bales of hay, 4 bags of grain, and a couple of protein tubs. Although we are grateful, that did not make an impact on our ranching operations on how this program is supposed to be utilized. And then also ranching practices that need improving for our tribal infrastructure, because our tribal ranches were put here by our former leaders to help alleviate the situation that we are having now, which is overgrazing and overpopulation. We just have too many cattle on our ranges, and our ranges cannot support the amount of livestock and feral horses as well as wildlife that are on there. So it's meant to be a seasonal grazing that we provide that opportunity for these ranchers that are having these issues. And so the AIF benefits is put towards improving it. And that's what we're going to do now. And then also with area-wide fencing to provide fencing material for our ranchers who are participating in EQIP projects, or just our average Navajo rancher that is just trying to make what they got better with a little bit of assistance from Department of Agriculture. And then also, although the PRF insurance is designed for ranchers, our RDC as well as former leadership had included our farmers, which is great because this helps our farmers improve their water infrastructure, as well as, for our ranchers, their dams and also windmills. And then also drought contingency planning, watershed planning for agriculture, and then also administrative costs with the development of the horse management program. That's our 7-man crew that go out and rescue feral horses from the chapters. And so those are some of the administrative costs that are included in the benefits. And then also, secondly, is the infamous incentive payment program. And years before, there was the farm and garden incentive program, but due to no cap from previous management of the farm and garden, just about anybody could sign up for that farm and the garden incentive program, which amounted to $500. And so we are still reconciling our budget to see what is available for our gardeners, but also for our farmers as well. More information will be coming soon to when we will open up the farm incentive program. So we'll focus on what is open right now, which is the livestock management incentive program. This is for grazing permittees, and then also for our lessees and those that have some sort of management program for their livestock. And what does this amount to? So this amounts to, okay, either $1,500, $2,500, or $3,500, depending on how much sheep units that you have been permitted to graze in your area. So 1 to 49 sheep units will receive 1,500, 5,200 will receive 2,500, 101 on up is going to receive 3,500. And so for the farm and garden LUP holders will receive $1,000, and then the gardeners receive $500. And there is the flyer that we will post soon. It's just been a hectic time trying to get this AIF program, incentive program, under control. And I feel like right now we've got a handle on it and we're moving forward. Okay, so I want to touch on the first benefit, which are the AIF projects. So they are categorized into 9 funding pools, which has to do with, as you guys can see there on the slide, the first box is range, grazing, and livestock, tribal ranches infrastructure, farming and irrigation, agriculture, water development, water planning for agriculture, drought contingency planning, area-wide fencing, the brand office, and then also agricultural complexes. And so these I pulled out from the fund management plan, and that's how it reads for your information. Okay, so I can't see you guys, but I don't know how many of you guys have submitted project proposals from 2018 to 23 and even into 24. So how, from my understanding, these project proposals were designed to give the department a visual and then also support of what are the priorities from our agency. And then also the district agency, grazing committees, the major irrigation farm boards, as well as the Eastern Joint Land Board had provided priorities also to Department of Agriculture. And then also we did receive project proposals submitted by nonprofit organizations, chapters, and then from individual farmers, ranchers, and then also our Navajo Nation Council members, as well as our sister departments in under Division of Natural Resources. Here you can see what the project proposal should have covered in order to be considered to be funded. And I can provide this this presentation to Mikhail for you guys to further review. And it's a basic project proposal guideline. So how is this supposed to work? Number one is your project concept. You provide it to either Department of Agriculture or one of the other DNR departments that I had mentioned earlier. And then from there, you provide your project justification, and those are the requirements that have to be submitted within that project proposal. And then from there, it comes to Department of Agriculture and then also DNR to review. DNR approves. We notified the grantee, if you will, with a notice to proceed. And then from there, it's up to the grantee to complete the project. And then from there, we inspect, we see that the project is completed, and then we close it out and audit it as needed. So this is just a supplemental information to the project proposal. And these are all, like I said, located within the fund management plan, as well as with the respective legislations approving each AIF project year. Okay, so what does this mean? How much was allocated for each year? And this is the checks and balance. This is the overall performance of our AIF benefits. Year one, you can see that the benefit should have been 14.5 made available. But due to the oversight of the 2.8 million reserve set aside, not being set aside that year, we were in a deficit. 25, you can see that the net benefits were higher than what the allocated Navajo AIF project funds were. And this is because of how the insurance program, how we are insured. So if we are insured November to December, we're not going to see those indemnity benefits until about March. And so that's what happened here, which is a blessing in disguise because it covered what we were negative in. Now, like I said, year 3 is where it gets kind of sticky because you can see what we were, what our benefits were, which was the 3 years totaled out to be 35.1 million. But it was 37.9 was allocated for projects. And then also in 21, the livestock feed distribution, which amounted to $4 million. Checks and balances showed that we were 6.7 million in the hole. But with year 4, year 22, and year 23 has offset that to where now, if calculations are correct, according to the legislation, year 4, there is 12.4 million available. So what were these projects? I know a lot of you guys have questions. Well, how did I see these benefits aside from the incentives? Here you can see what was approved within legislation RDCD 118 within each department, which is the Water Resources, Navajo Department of Agriculture, Forestry Department, Historic Preservation Department, Fish and Wildlife, and then also our premium set aside. So these projects have been made available in 2018. Again, I'll provide this presentation for you guys to further review. Year 2, this is what the projects look like, pretty much a carbon copy of what year 1 has provided. And there is a lot of windmill projects that, Water Resources have identified, as well as earth and dam repairs. And you can see throughout the listing there. And then also what our department have provided for our Navajo producers on down. Now, year 3, as I said, it gets kind of confusing because number 1, it does state in legislation RDCD 4022 that 9.2 million was remaining within the unapproved project balance. And in 2019, of course, we had a loss. In 2020 and 21, we've had some benefits, which totaled out to 59.8. But we have to pay back our premium that we had utilized from CHSN. So here you can see the projects from Water Resources, a lot of irrigation improvements for our farmers throughout the Navajo Nation. And then also, and this was made available due to the priorities that were submitted by the Major Irrigation Farm Board committee. So that's how the projects were for the Department of Water Resources. And then for Department of Agriculture, we did have 21.2 million that have been approved, and that is available. I'm not too sure if you guys can see my mouse cursor, but if you look here on the list, if you look from the Navajo Nation Fair events and improvements down, these were projects that had project proposals submitted. Oh, I apologize. Underneath the fair improvements. So the livestock feed assistance programs for NPL livestock owners on down to the bottom, those were project proposals that were submitted in 18 that was approved back in 2022. So these were made available to the respective groups that had submitted their proposals. And then continuing on, forestry, historic preservation, and then fish and wildlife, and then our premium reserve set aside. But also, if you notice in the red, before we get to the red, let's look at this highlighted part where it says RDC and DNR AIF approve year 3 projects. And that's approval, just how it says RDC and DNR approve these projects. Now, if you look at the ones that are highlighted in red, those have not been approved by DNR. And so this is what we're reworking here.
Split the Chinese food. Huh? We're just going to split the Chinese food.
Okay.
For those of you that are participating, would you mind muting your mic, please? Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So if we look at the red highlighted sections, we are revisiting them. Some of them are duplicates, and then also some the sponsors we have not received feedback, and so we're revisiting them and to combine them or eliminate them so we can move forward, and but we will roll them into year 4 and revisit these projects to progress. So those are what the year 1, year 2, and year 3 projects have been approved and has been provided for our livestock producers as well as our farmers. So due to those projects that have not been approved at DNR level, back in 2024, the Winter Council session that was held in January of 24, the Budget and Finance Committee delegate Amber Crotty had requested for an audit. And so what kind of audit is being conducted right now? Well, it's a performance audit to revisit these projects to confirm that what the project was the money that was allocated for the project has been performed in accordance to the project proposals. So we are currently undergoing an AIF audit, performance audit, and that's just an update on AIF. Although we are being audited, we are still moving forward and providing these programs and projects for our farmers and ranchers. So I know that was a lot to hear. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Jess. So if you guys have any questions, like she mentioned, feel free to unmute yourself, or better yet, if you want to insert your questions in the chat box.
Good evening. My name is Annette Ghani. I'm calling in from Pinyon. From the projects that you shared and then your PowerPoint, there seems to be really vast difference. A lot of it is like programs that already exist under the nation that were allocated or funded all the past years. I didn't see like any particular farmer or I guess you could say rancher getting funded.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like wondering, did they come under the umbrella of other departments? You know, that was my question. Thanks.
Thank you for your question. And that was one thing that I, coming into this position back last year in May is how do these projects help the individual farmer and rancher? And the answer is it depends. It depends on who is providing the program. And there's really no answer for you, because I was not in the position, in this position from the start to now. But what I can gather is here, and that's one of my main priorities, is to make these benefits work for the individual rancher and farmer. I know the USDA has NRCS EQIP programs, and that's a cost share program. And because ranchers, Navajo ranchers in particular, and farmers are classified as socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers, so the cost share benefit is higher. NRCS will pay up to 90% of that project, and then you are responsible for 10%. Maybe that has changed. Maybe it's at 80-20, but nevertheless, there is that project. And my goal, my priority is to say, okay, because you farmers and ranchers don't have access to capital because you can't use your land and for collateral. Well, that's where this program is supposed to be working for you guys, to help you maybe front the upfront cost so that you guys can get your fencing, your water lines installed, quicker, rather than trying to find financial assistance. And so that's what I'm looking at. If you look here at the Ranchers Supplemental Feed Program, if you guys don't, if your range is depleted and you need somewhere to go, that's how that program is going to work for you, is that we're working here at Department of Agriculture to create a supplementing grazing program. What does that mean? So if we look at NAPI, they have fields there that are available for grazing. Why not put our ranchers together and put them on those fields for 6 months? And Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture can help you pay for it. And then where do you guys go after that? If your ranges are not ready to come back to you, that's where we have either the tribal ranches, if it's available, or we stay there at NAPI. This is just a quick fix. It's not a long-term thing. Maybe it will be for some of you guys. And that's what we're looking at, to utilize these dollars correctly. And then also, maybe you just have 5 head of cattle and you're more comfortable with having them at home and feeding them out. Okay, well, let's look at that type of program for you ranchers, and then also with our farmers. A lot of them, from my past experience, number one is they need water to their fields. And then also from there, they need that technical assistance, the guidance to help them get their fields back into operations. And that's where these dollars can assist. It's gonna be more effective, in my opinion, to use these dollars. Utilizing it from the departments is great, but it's a little slow moving because of our Navajo Nation procurement process. So I know that doesn't answer your question directly, but that's the direction that Department of Agriculture is going into. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Antoinette. Any more questions that we have from the audience tonight?
This is Trina. I have a question, if I
Yes.
may have a moment. Hi, Jesse. Thank you. Welcome back. We appreciate all this information. Kind of piggybacking on that question that was just asked a moment ago. As she mentioned, based on your report that individual ranchers are not on the list, is Department of Agriculture, do you guys have something in place or something that you're working on, like a criteria? How are you guys determining the distribution? how are you guys determining that we're receiving our share for the range that we are leasing? Is there something that you guys are going to be implementing soon?
For proper distribution,
Just
we
like for
will-
the distribution of this benefit,
right.
since we can't individually apply for the insurance, how are you guys determining? Because I know with those tubs, you said for every 15 head of cattle, but it just seems like it's not being, it's that benefit is not really benefiting the rancher specifically based on the rangeland that the nation is utilizing for this insurance. If that makes any sense, my
Yeah,
question.
it does make sense. And those are, we're working through it. So what I can tell you is if we look at these dollars for these years in particular, they are for trust land. And where these tribal ranches are located on are on fee lands. So lessees, you guys are allowed to participate, but also that's another controversy. You guys are allowed to have your own policy, but you have to pay for it. I know since 2000, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 2019, the nation has been paying for it utilizing the CHSN funds. But the problem there is in the standing legislation, CO 5716, there is no black and white that that can happen. So not to continue to break the law, we stop and we are going to be making amendments to that to help our tribal ranchers located on fee lands. And then from there, you guys can utilize your own funding. But we also have to be financially responsible from the Department of Agriculture. Although it is not our money and we do have, access to help you guys in that way, the grids, some grids will pay more than the others. Let's focus in on those ranches that are located on those grids that will pay back the premium. And then those that are located on a bad grid, let's work through this. Let's work through it to where we're not going to be spending thousands of dollars when we know we're going to be losing it. Why play with money that way? Why don't we designate programs like this to benefit the tribal rancher, I guess you could say the Navajo rancher that's located on trust land. And there has been that conversation with our oversight RDC regarding that. Our council members that are located in Arizona, they're saying money should be appropriated where the money is made. But, we have to be fair. And I would say the government is here to be fair. And to be fair, we're all ranchers. The money should be distributed where it's needed, because how many years are we behind from the United States agriculture industry? I can say we're probably 50, 60 years behind where we should be at. Navajo Nation is the biggest cattle rancher and sheep rancher to the United States. We just don't realize it, but if we could organize ourselves by utilizing these programs to develop agriculture on the Navajo Nation, we can be a competitor. I know that doesn't answer your question, but this is how we're looking at it. We can't just put all the money to this side, which leaves our Eastern ranchers and our tribal ranchers out, and then also our ranchers up in Utah and so forth. So why don't we just develop programs that I accomplish and assist where needed? Number one is water. Number two is what? Feed, and then access to supplemental grazing areas. So that's how we're looking at it. We can definitely have a side conversation on how are we going to help our tribal ranchers like they've been helped before. And in my opinion alone, is amending that standing legislation to assist you guys how you've been assisted before by paying you guys' premium. Thank you, Trina, for your question.
Hi, this is Virginia.
Hi, Virginia.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. I just sitting here wondering, I know this AIF is a great program. Probably some of this is going to be comment rather than question, but in order for the big reservation to really come into compliance with our laws and as far as improving our rangeland, we really need to control our feral horses. Those are the number one problems. What I see on the big reservation is the feral horses. My husband and I, we ranch over by just above Window Rock, and we could practice our movement. You know, we don't have our fences, but yet the horses are there 24/7. And in order to say that we try to practice range management, but with the feral horses, it's just so impossible to do. And so ranchers, farmers, I think our number one problem is really to get rid of excess horses. Anyway, number two, the supplement program is good also, particularly for the winter. During the winter time, nothing is green other than hay we feed to our livestock. And so what you have at the Department of Ag is good, because we had to buy it, and which is fair enough. And also another comment to make about the feed that was distributed from the chapter houses. My husband and I, we didn't see no tub, no grain. We got our 5 bales, but that was not a smart thing to do, is the chapter to give out these feed free. And you know, I don't mind buying hay and feed, because as Navajos, we want to have livestock, but it's our own doing. It's we had to take care of them, and we shouldn't be looking for handout all the time. And so that's a good. Now we don't do that no more. So I hope we don't give money to the chapters to give out free feed. And also the other thing is these water resources that supposedly receive some funds, and we would call them to maintain our windmill, and also the third tank. We have a hard time. They told us that there's no money. So I don't know who got funded, who got their windmill taken care of. It's just not an even, the help wasn't spread across the nation somewhat fairly. And so that's some of the comments that I would like to provide. The other thing is some of us probably not probably, but we did apply for this AIF. Although I see on your screen that you don't start taking application until or is it already going on? I think it is February 2nd through May. Is it?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So anyway, some of us had already applied, so with those, do we have to do it again, or is that fine?
Okay. So let me answer the question of the AIF applications right now. So with the change in insurance agent, there was a website that was developed, and I'm sure a lot of you had utilized, which was the NavajoAIF.com. So from that, there was no software agreement that was developed and signed between the Navajo Nation and CKP. So when the Department of Ag and DNR had moved to a different agency following the laws, the website was cut off from us. And so now White Collar Crimes is involved, and they're currently in litigation to get the information back. If you have submitted an application, please come to our office or contact myself or Cordell Smith, who's handling the AIF applications. And if you've submitted it for 23 and 24 and still have not received anything, we just have to restart, and we can verify within the system if you've been paid or not. And if you have not been paid, then we will resubmit for you to ensure that you get paid. You have gotten paid for the years that you submitted and have not received funding. We can do that. And we are taking applications daily, and we can email the application form to McCall to have available for all of you guys, and then also your extension agents for your agency, and then also your grazing officials or land board officials should have those applications. If they don't, call us, email us, and we can send you one. And we ask that you provide your grazing permit and updated tally counts for the years that you have applied for, your CIB, your driver's license, your social security card, and then you have to sign the W-9. That's part of the OOC guidelines. And then also, yeah, those documents is what you're going to need. And then as far as your comments about the feral horse control, we do, like I said earlier, we do have a horse management team that is rounding up and rescuing all of these horses from the chapters. If your chapter has not had one of these equine rescue operations provided, please contact us, and we will look at the schedule and see if your chapter is there. And then also one thing that we're planning on doing is looking at aerial feral horse rescue operations to be more effective, because what they're predicting for this year is we're supposed to go through another dry spell, and we've already experienced that twice. And that, is worrisome because we know how bad it can get. But if we can control the feral horse population, and then also the feral cattle population, that's why we have a horse management team that is utilizing the AIF dollars. And then your comments regarding the water resources, if you could contact me and let me know, what type of assistance was needed, and then we can certainly review and talk with Tyrick and see if we can't get you some services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Good evening. This is Marge.
Hi, Marge.
Jesse, welcome back. Just like I said, we agree with Destin, and I'm sure everybody else had missed you. We did so. Anyhow, we're very thankful for the update you have provided us this evening, and more time would have been be much better to get our questions cleared. I have three questions or a comment to make. Number one is, you did mention fairness. I totally agree with you, fairness, because this land, fee versus trust land, we are on a fee land with the tribal ranchers, and that's the only place that we can raise our cattle. And we're sticking with the agriculture and environment. We're raising beef for our community or across the nation, and we're also trying to take care of the land. So I think you should really, really support us, which you already are. And as a rancher, you do understand where we all come from. So I think the fairness is very good. Keep that fairness across, although whether we're on a fee land or a trust land. So ADI just wanted to bring that up and continue to stand up for us, because there's a lot of needs that we do have the same needs that the individual ranchers that's encountering on the trust land. So the main issue is the water source, like you had mentioned. On the tribal ranches, we do need some new equipment and new earthen dam rehab and the water facility. Okay, so I do agree with you on the fairness. And then I did see some expenditures and on your listing there, and I saw 4-H and FFA. I'm a total pro for our 4-H young people still trying to carry on the aquaculture industry. So does this mean that we have 5 fair, and I think 5 Navajo Nation fair? So Eastern Fair hosts junior livestock show. And going back to your project application, what Eastern Navajo Fair would have submit a project application to fund the junior livestock show for Eastern Navajo Fair? That's just a question right there. And if so, we sure would like to benefit this AIF funds, because our young folks are experiencing and they are trying to promote aquaculture. So that's a thing, because and we had worked with you before, Eastern Navajo Fair Junior Livestock. We just have to volunteer, and we solicit sponsorship to overcome that show for our young folks. And the third one is the meat processing. It showed that there was like $500,000 that was like earmarked for them, and a $100,000 that has still been not approved. I know just talking with some producers, number one question is always like, I wonder how it would be if we had a meat processing on the reservation here on our own Navajo Nation land. And I know Mr. Notas said we have it in our plan, but we just wonder where the plan is. And then if going back to New Mexico cattle growers, they already have the mobile meat processing that moves around to where the producer's ready to start processing finished beef or something like that. And they have processing facility out there. So maybe we just need an update on where we're at under the Navajo Nation as far as the meat processing proposal is. So, but as far as other information, they're very good. And thank you for an update this evening. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Marge. Okay, so let me go from your last question all the way back to your first question. So the question on meat processing facility, as I mentioned before, the unapproved on some of those, who are we supposed to give the funding to? The sponsors are unknown. And then also, if you go back and look at it, it does say feasibility. I believe that there has been feasibility studies that have already been completed regarding, the feasibility of meat processing on the Navajo Nation. And from what I understand is that we don't have the volume, meaning we don't have enough cattle as it is now to constantly keep that meat processing facility. I believe the U.S. has 4 major meat processing facilities that provide beef for the nation. But as far as Navajo Nation, At this point, like the mobile Montanza is more feasible for the nation to process this beef. You know, we have to, number one, establish our clients. Who are going to be our clients? Is it going to be the schools, senior centers, community centers, grocery stores? And I believe Native Beef is doing a great program with that, of providing beef to the Navajo casinos, as well as to Bash's, our grocery store here on the Navajo Nation. So I'm not saying just because it's not going to be approved, it's not going to happen. What we need is more time to talk about this, and, you know, looking towards our community, our grassroots people, we need to hear from you. I know that you have extensive experience and you do a great job representing Navajo Nation with the New Mexico Beef Council. You know, let's come together and let's talk about it. And then from there, let's develop a plan that you are going to be the driver, our Navajo farmers and ranchers, and then also our organization. You guys are going to be in the driver's seat. And it's not, I cannot do 100 things at once, even though I try. But I'm really relying on my people here, my farmers and the ranchers, to really make these dollars work for the Navajo agriculture industry. Now, going up to your second question about providing dollars to the 4-H organization and FFA, I'm a big supporter. As you guys know it, I was a 4-H extension agent with Tribal Extension with Mexico State University. They are our future. Now I'm preaching to the choir, but, you know, we are developing a grant application to where you fill it out and you tell us what type of dollars is going to be needed. And I think with the AIF benefits, we should be reinvesting in our youth, because they're going to be the future. They're going to be sitting here, or they're going to be sitting there taking care of Navajo agriculture. So once it's approved, I'm going to send it to you, Marge, and let you tell me and the department and the division how much Eastern Agency Junior Livestock Show needs support with. You guys have noticed here on the fairgrounds here at Navajo Nation that the 4-H facility has gotten a long overdue facelift, and that was made possible by AIF funding. So going to your first question regarding the fee lands to be equal, you know, we are planning to meet with the tribal ranchers. I think in April. I'd have to get with Sean on that too. Okay, let's talk about these projects that we need to allocate funding for, and not just, you know, hit and miss on giving one producer this, that. Let's really focus on, number one, which dams, which windmills, and also getting our employees, our ranch hands here certified to do these windmills, because water resources, I'm sure, is bogged down with their work requests, and we want to help you guys there on tribal ranchers with your windmills, because we're responsible for it. If you look back to the code, that's Navajo Department of Agriculture's responsibility. And I think you, Marge, you know, and all of our producers that have been hanging tough in there and, you know, doing your own repairs. And so now it's time for Department of Agriculture to pick up the slack, in my opinion. So thank you, Marge. I always enjoy your questions and your insight. And thank you. It's great to hear your voice and also see your name on the screen.
Thank you so much. Yes, we will be looking forward to work with you, Jessie. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all for your questions. We'll take one last question. Oh, I see a hand raised. Okay, so we'll do 2 more questions. Dustin, go ahead, and after Dustin, we'll have Loretta.
Thank you, Michaela. And like I say the same thing. Welcome back, Jessie. It's good to see you and good to hear you back on NSA webinars. And just to add comments, probably age myself, in regards to the feasibility study regarding our processing plants, going back to Dr. Ignatius and Dr. Mathis, who were the beef specialists back in New Mexico State days, last century, I guess you could say. They said the same thing. We don't have the numbers as a regional, also, not only as a Navajo Nation, but as a regional area. And that shows, and I think more lines going towards the mobile slaughtering plants is more in line to be feasible in regards to processing plants. And also, I had a question on the AFF. You guys had there on the sheep units. Is that I share my permit with my aunt? Would we have to both individually apply, or would we apply at one thing? And also, to be fairness too, regarding the AFF participation, I guess you could say, is there a waiver that the trust people, the permittees, are able to do to get out underneath the Navajo Nation's umbrella of the grids, to be able to go on our own, just like the leasees do with the tribal ranches? Because it's just more of a feasible study. I mean, I always like to compare things. If I could get it under the Navajo Nation, then I could. But if it's easier or more streamlined process for me to do my own conservation projects and go apply for the PRF on my own, would that be a possibility, or is that something you guys are discussing? Because like I said, you guys are allowing that availability to do that with the leasees on the tribal ranches. Would that be a possibility? Because you said you're refining the process, or the renewal of the programs coming up the end of 2025. Those are my two questions I had.
Okay. Thank you, Dustin, for your questions. I knew this was coming, and that's why I reached out to get the word out. So as far as a individual trustee to participate, it depends. So those that are located on Navajo Nation trust lands, if they have an RMU, of course, with FSA, they have to demonstrate control of the land, and that's through a grazing permit. So if you have your grazing permit, you have control of the land and you can participate with your FSA programs, your NRCS program. And the thing about this PRF program is it needs to be, there needs to be more talking on it, because number one is that depending on the size of your ranch, acres is what is going to determine the premium cost. And I'll save that for our insurance agent to really go in depth in answering that of, are you able to pay your own premium, but then also amending the standing legislation to assist ranchers like yourself and also our tribal ranchers. Let's assist you guys. And I'm all about being independent. If you guys want to do it on your own, then let's work on doing that. But also one thing is Navajo Nation trustees do not pay grazing fees. Allottees and lessees, they pay grazing fees. So that's what allows them to, number one, have control of the land, and then number two, allows them to participate individually. And I know that there have been some people who there are Navajo ranchers and farmers that are participating alone, but that let me do some more research and I'll get back to you on that, Dustin, on how that could be made available. And then number two, regarding the AIF benefits of having two names on the permit. So we are still refining our policies with the AIF benefits, the incentives. So a quick fix to that is 50-50. So if you guys have, more than 101 sheep units, then you guys would be qualified for 3,500, but you would split it down the middle. Or if you would like to be the sole beneficiary and you're the one running the ranch, all we would need is a mutual agreement from your aunt stating that you can receive the full funding from AIF. And that way it covers our bases legally. And then also we don't get into having duplicate payments for the same permit. It's not set in stone. This is the feedback that I want from you guys on what is not working and what works. And do you guys agree with the direction that we're heading in. So thank you for that question, Dustin. And then as far as your comment with the mobile slaughtering unit, thank you for validating what I have been reading and researching. And definitely, you know, NAPI did have a feedlot, and let's look into filling those feedlots up and, you know, making our own little industry, meat industry work on the Navajo Nation. And then I would be looking towards your leadership in assisting Navajo Department of Agriculture and making a you know, maybe we have mobile slaughter units within each agency to support our cattle and sheep ranchers. Thank you, Destin.
Thank you, Dustin. So we'll go ahead and end with our last question for tonight. Loretta, go ahead and unmute yourself, please. While she is working on unmuting herself, so Dustin did ask in a chat box, corrections, Eastern Navajo permittees do pay grazing fees.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, all right, Miss Largo, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for this evening's presentation. It was well informative for me since I do take all the notes for our ranch. Number one is this issue about the grid. And I think I mentioned that at our last meeting we had over at Dickie's barbecue session. And this grid is what I'm sure it was presented to me in black and white. But my question is that how would a grid understand and read the finding of the drought where we're located at? So we have this huge mountain covering both from the south and the north, and indicating that we have received moisture, but it's not. And it's really frustrating and sad because I had applied back in 2022, I believe it was, or 23 with AIF, and some person by the name of Jerry, I think it was, indicating that you're being denied, and I asked for a letter of a denial, but was never sent to me. So I just let that one be. Then on the USDA, we did a project, and that was a fence line that we have 3 section, and then we did a water line in one of the unit there, so which was really good. And right now we would like to get back into the equip, would be nice, but they're asking for documentation because part of this USDA would help us with our current windmill. Back in 2020, when this COVID came about, we were informed that we would get a windmill in good condition from another ranch, and it was just delivered. And from there, that was it. They told us that you're on your own. So we were hauling water about 1,200 gallon each other day. And this was about probably like 5 o'clock in the morning to get down to where we're at. And finally, we decided one day, let's take down the old damaged windmill, which we left it to the side. And I'm not sure, I don't see any serial number or either registration tag to Navajo Nation. I was gonna make that as a small hut there. And so based on that used windmill that was delivered, we put that up. And we put that up and come to find out that it was a different configuration. So we took down the old prior windmill. We put the used recent windmill. And we're just having a problem with it left and right. And I know the water is leaking underneath the tank. And each time I said it can't. I can't be looking into my overhead expense. So we decided to look into it and try to repair the windmill ourselves. And come to find out is how much a scaffold stand is cost. And so we need a couple of those scaffolds to put up against the tank in order to torch and weld and repair and to get that the water line extension repaired. So we learning to do our own project, and I didn't want to ask water resource or either the Pebble Pintado resource, and I said, okay, let's just go ahead and look into the allocated monthly expense that we have. So right now, this coming weekend, I said we are going to work on it and we are going to repair it, and we'll get the water line back in operation so we can move our cattle into that one particular unit. So right now, that's where we're at, and it's really frustrating. But I agree with everyone that spoke regarding the AIF fairness. Just because we have livestock doesn't mean that we are rich. There's no such thing as rich. Look at
Yep.
the price for the feed, the sweet cake that we got from ranch office, and then the hay, and then the grain, then the vaccination, then we're taking our cattle, our calves, and so all together, is working for us. But the bottom point is that if we had been allocated on this AIF, I'm sure it will help us. If we can get the equip going, then that will help us out a lot too. So we're right in the middle of the Two Ridge by Mount Taylor, and right there by Tornyorn, and there's no cell range whatsoever. So once you get off the road, and you're just gonna have to know what you're doing, and then come to a certain area where you have cell range for 911. So we've been doing that in operation. So I want to make that clear that I believe that whether it's a fee land or trust land regarding the payment to be made on that, I seen it on your expenditure, and then also seeing the one for the allocation to this on the AF. So I just want I just want everyone to be given fair share of this funds, so that way we will be able to live forward and then move forward with our project. So other than that, it's good to see you, um, Miss Jessie Jim, regarding all the information. I feel for you, and I'm hoping that we can stand beside you. Then also, Mikkel, the same thing again. I hope that you keep this going and the information to all of us. Some we work way out nowhere, and then we try to make it back in. But this is a very good information by the Zoom meeting. So thank you very much, Miss Jim, and also Mikkel. So thank you very much, and also everyone have a good evening. If we're going to be told to get off the phone, thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. And then also, I want to connect to you privately regarding some of the work orders that you submitted to the department, and let's revisit it. And then I do have Sean Holgate that's running the tribal ranch program, and let's work through some of your requests and helping you with the material. And then as far as supporting documents from Department of Ag to, say that you are allowed to participate in USDA programs. We have been providing those letters, and what we would like to do so that you're not waiting on us is what we are doing is getting the leases in place and ready to go before RDC. But before it gets to RDC, it needs to go through our 164 process to present to RDC that, we do recommend these ranchers to receive their second 10-year lease. And those are some of the practices that we're looking at. Is this rancher really serious about their ranching? Are they putting in the improvements, and are they trying? And everybody is trying on those tribal ranches and doing the best that they could. And so we'll look at that, and then also some of the grid issues that you're having. You know, in your grid, it probably shows that you're getting a lot of rain, but then where you're at is, you're not getting any kind of rain. So I'm gonna not answer that question because I'm not an expert in that field. That's why we have native land insurance to answer that, and we'll schedule with NSA to provide a presentation on how the PRF insurance works and what are the grids looking like on the Navajo Nation as well for our tribal ranches. So and what we're trying to do, like I said in the beginning, is that we're just trying to put the information out there for you guys right now. It's a lot of information, digest it, and then we're going to follow up. And we'll, to understand it, it took me a good, let's see, I've been in this position for 8 months. It took me maybe about 3 months, and that was on and off reading and trying to understand. But I think we have a hold of it now, and we can start to make the changes that need to be made. And thank you again for your support. And then also, for being resilient out there at tribal ranches. I don't know how you guys do it, but you guys are doing it, and you guys are inspiration to me to continue working for you guys, for our Navajo farmers and ranchers. Yeah,
Excellent. Okay. Well,
One
go
more
ahead,
thing.
Jen.
I'm sorry. My division director, Mr. Halona, would like to share a few comments before you end, if that's possible.
No problem.
Okay.
He has the floor. Yep.
Janelle?
Yeah, Lanshanella. Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. I just want to be brief. I'm not, I should be done here in about 2 hours. So, I just wanted to say thank you to Jessie and her innovative ways of making things work on projects that we have asked of her to address. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Mike Halona. I'm the Executive Director for the Division of Natural Resources. Het de nil nisto het ado lab on site kesto het dat il nil naso and saha kesido da hat agiju nishan igila. So I'm thankful for that. And I want to thank Ms. Silversmith for giving us having to facilitate and be able to set this up this evening. And I think this is something we can build on. We've had over 30-something people on at one time, and I think we could double next time and be able to really start communicating. And that's something that's been lacking with the Department of Education. Agriculture is the education and the communication that's needed for us to move forward. When I was appointed by President Nygren, one of the priorities was agriculture. And I looked at that, I went to work at it, we did assessments. And as you all know, we made changes. We made changes to make improvements. We made changes to make things better. And the whole purpose is for our farmers and our ranchers down at the local level. And I always, when we talk about AIF, I always say, I know there's a grandpa out there right now, and he's got to go haul water. And he went outside and he found his tire flat. And he needs tires really bad to be able to stay in business, to continue to be productive, and we're not out there to help him. We got to get back to that level to be able to help him, so he'll be able to continue to produce, and for his family and for the nation. And so that's been a driving force for us here at the Division of Natural Resources, making those changes. And sometimes you had to put your foot down and make things change. As you saw that graph where all the red were, that said that the division didn't approve that. I want you to know it's not that I don't support it. It wasn't presented. The proposals were totally different than what the heading said. The budgets were totally different than what the heading said. And so we held all those back and we said, fix these, make them better. For instance, there's one of the proposed was to help the ranchers with feed program. And when you look at the amount and you total it up, that means about $48 to each chapter. It just didn't make sense. A lot of it was for administrative costs. So we're making those changes. We're reshuffling now, year 1, year 2, year 3, and now going to be year 4. And Jesse Chanella is working on the priorities. What will they be? How will we be able to administer? What's the policy? What's the procedure? Being able to move forward to be able to do this. And it's good to have our own Navajo business people that are also ranchers from native lands to assist us. It's in their heart to help us now. It's in their heart to provide us the best services, to provide the best guidance for their relative, for their rancher next door to them, because they live right here on Navajo, so they understand us. And so we can move forward, all of us working together, and to be able to address the comments that were made. Trail horses is way high up on the listing of what we want to do. So we're working, the contract is going through right now to do some aerial stuff so we can increase what we're doing on the ground to be able to do to get more horses off the range. We want to use some aerial to be able to speed up that process going forward. So I just wanted to add that to let you know I appreciate each and every one of you, what you do and what you do for your families, what you do for your communities, and what we're going to do for the nation together. So I want to continue to be a part of these trainings and webinars as well. And so those in he cases doing his lunches, and he cases. I'm helping, and I want to be a part of it. So I just wanted to add that. Have a great evening, and thank you for this opportunity. Hakuna.
Thank you, Mr. Holon. I really appreciate those words. So we'll go ahead and conclude our presentation tonight. Thank you so much to Jessie and her staff and Mr. Holona for hopping on here tonight to provide this very thorough presentation on the status of the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund program. So it was much needed. So for those of you that were asking if this presentation is going to be shared, yes, it will be. It will be shared next week on our platform. So if you have basically hopped on in mid-presentation, we are going to be putting this up to share on our platform next week. I went ahead and release our polls. So if I could get all of you to complete those polls, I greatly appreciate it. Like I've mentioned from the beginning, your feedback that we get from each of our sessions are very helpful, and it helps us determine how the year is going to play out based on the feedback. So if you have any suggestions, such as like having more NNDA presentations incorporated into our platform, definitely let us know. The more, the better. So that way we can host this type of outreach for all of you folks. And like what Miss Jim mentioned about the PRF insurance, maybe we can take a dive deeper into that session and maybe have a webinar around that. And even then, if you want something like this in person, definitely insert that in the additional comment section. So with that being said, we do have a couple of workshops taking place for this month. So tomorrow we do have a livestock record keeping workshop. What this is going to just basically entail is 2 different types of record keeping systems. One of them is going to be just about production records, on how to keep production records on your top quality animals. culling records, how to complete those, vaccine treatment records, how to basically track down your company, your serial ID, everything from down to with the withdrawal time on the vaccine, how to incorporate that into your production records and more. We also going to end our livestock record keeping with our financial record keeping as well, which is going to be more of expenses and income based. So we do have booklets that have been developed, like I mentioned before, from New Mexico State University with the help of our project director and other research specialists that have created this calendar booklet just specifically for financial record keeping. So we can show you how to complete that. And it's going to be from 11 all the way to 1. And it's going to be located at Ninahaza chapter. If all of you are pretty much not aware about this, it's located in Fruitland. But if you just punch it in into Google Maps, it will definitely take you to the chapter house. So we do have cattle nutrition webinar. I know some of you are pretty much wanting to have this type of segment incorporated as well. So we're slowly inviting a lot of these beef specialists, sheep specialists coming from different parts of the universities. And so we just want to kind of do a bigger, broader outreach to these universities because these folks have been basically doing research in this particular field. So they have the knowledge and everything to share with you guys. So if you guys want to register for this webinar, definitely if you're using your computer to tap into this webinar, take out your phone and scan this QR code here and I'll take you directly to our registration page. If not, if you're logging in from your phone, no worries. You can go ahead and head to our website at nsa.nmsu.edu. So this is going to be taking place on February 26th. That's next week on Wednesday. And like all of our webinars, they start at 5:30. And this is going to be presented by Dr. Farney. She is the Kansas State University Beef System Extension Specialist. So she's going to be providing some information on cattle nutrition. So with that being said, moving on from our upcoming events, we do have a conservation planning program. I'm not sure if most of you are aware about this, but this is in a collaboration effort with Dene College Land Grant Office, and we provide one-on-one technical assistance for those that are grazing permittees that are in need of an assistance to complete a BIA conservation plan. I understand how very complex that BIA template can be, but our technicians are basically there to help you for free. So if that is something you're interested in, Ms. Shirley Toth, her email, she's our program specialist. So if you need assistance as far as getting scheduled, definitely let her know. Her email is there at toth@nmsu.edu. And if you're not, interested in one-on-one and you're a land board official or farm board official, both in Eastern or Northern Navajo Agency, we also provide conservation planning or conservation plan workshops. We can do more of an informational workshop just based on the overview of what the BIA template does look like, or we can go more in depth on goals and objectives, helping you out on how to complete a soil survey through NRCS soils, and so forth. So we get more in depth into each section of the BIA template. Moving on from there. Okay, so we're just about wrapping up now. So you'll see more information on our NNDA webinar series, but I'll just go ahead and share with you right now. We don't have any flyers created just yet, but our next one is going to be on March 5th, and that's going to be more on range and forage studies. the need to adjust grazing permits on the Navajo Nation. And our last one will be March 19th on permit compliant requirements and how to obtain, how to transfer, probate grazing permits. So we'll go ahead and share our flyers as soon as we get them generated, and you'll have to take a look out for them, I'm sorry, on our Facebook page. So if you're not following us, we're under Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project on Facebook. Like all of our webinars, they're recorded and posted on our YouTube channel, but we also share them on Facebook as well. We also have a bi-monthly newsletter. We're kind of late on that, but we really apologize. Everything is pretty much up to date on our website. So if you want, we'll be sharing this sometimes next week. And as well as a copy of tonight's presentation will be included on the website as well. Other than that, thank you all for joining us this evening. If you haven't completed the polls yet, I highly suggest everyone to complete the polls. But overall, thank you all for attending tonight's session, and we hope to see you at the next webinar series. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Good night, everyone. Have a safe drive.
My name is Mikkel Silversmith. I am the NSA project coordinator, and I'm going to be your host and moderator for this evening. So we'll go ahead and get rolling. If I can work my next slide. Okay. So we're known as the Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project. In short, we're called the NSA project, and we're basically part of the New Mexico Cooperative Extension under New Mexico State University. And we partner a lot with our project partners. One of them, the big one of them is the Nate College Land Grant Office, and COPE, which stands for Community Outreach and Patient Empowerment. And obviously our NMSU CES specialist, coming from the main campus in Las Cruces. So our project is funded by the USDA Outreach and Assistance for Native Farmers and Ranchers and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers program. So that's kind of a little background of the NSA project, where we're funded, who we are, and where we're coming from. So the NSA's primary goal is to help our producers improve their operations, both profitability and sustainability. And we deliver in-person workshops and webinars that are basically tailored to our producers' needs. And this is based on the feedback that we gather from all of our in-person workshops and webinars. So most of you on here, I see a lot of familiar names and I can match your faces with them. You've attended majority of our previous held webinars to our in-person sessions, and you pretty much know that at each end of our workshops and webinars, there is an evaluation. So that evaluation is the feedback that we gather from each of those sessions and what we tailored around to deliver these type of educational workshops. So kind of naming a few, we've gone through a lot of our record keeping workshops that covers mainly cattle and sheep production records, like from culling records to vaccine treatment records, from breeding records and so forth. But we also not only do production side of record keeping, and we also do financial record keeping, tracking expenses, how to keep your income intact. So we do have these booklets that are basically developed under our director, Dr. Michael Patrick, along with other research specialists that developed this booklet. So we've been conducting those workshops over the past few weeks, and they are hitting home runs. So if that is something that you're interested in, you are a land board or farm board official, definitely let me know, and I can give my email credentials at the end of this presentation. So another essential goal of ours is, increasing our producers' knowledge in USDA programs. All of you are pretty much aware of those type of programs under USDA. One of the two most common one would be the NRCS and FSA programs. So what we do is every year we host a virtual resource fair. We give USDA local field offices a platform to share their programs and details. So ranchers and farmers can learn how to access support that aligns with their needs. So that could be, forage drought loss assistance that Farm Service Agency provides. It could be equipped through the NRCS programming and so forth. So we do give that information out as well through our newsletters and not just through our virtual resource fair. But this year is going to be a little bit different. So we're gearing up to have that hosted in person. So sometimes this year, later down these months, we should have a in-person USDA resource fair. And also, invite our folks from NNDA to, have them, give them to share that platform with them. And if they have any types of programs like the AIF that they want to talk about with you all, then that's something that we can provide. Lastly, we do have another essential program is we focus on increasing local fresh food production in areas that we serve, which is San Juan County, McKinley, and Cibola County. With our gardening projects, we collaborate with experts that you see a lot on our workshops and webinar flyers like you see here, from COPE to LGO to NMSU CES. So we use experts, from COPE, not Dr. Palmer, Ms. Palmer, who led sessions of ours from food preservation to gardening planning in a more fun, fun way to approach gardening. So she has her little spin on these type of gardening DIYs, and I thought that's pretty cool to see. So if you want to see some of her webinars, you can definitely access that on our webpage. You can also see majority of our NMSU specialists, such as Dr. Walker, who presented a lot on our spring vegetable gardening series. Overall, we are happy to share more in-person workshops tailored to gardening and crops. Simply share with us your feedback at the end of this session.